Too strong, too loud. One second, let me turn this down a little bit. There we go. Okay, good. So this week we're learning about the giving of the Torah. Giving of the Torah. Perhaps the most important, and for certainly the most important event that ever occurred in the history of the world was when God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. The whole world was just created for this purpose. In fact, it says in the beginning of creation, if you read in the Torah, it says that on the sixth day, every day is called, it's called Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom. It says Yom Hashishi. In other words, when God creates the world, He says this is the first day, second day, third day, and when it gets to the sixth day, it says this is the Hashishi. This is this sixth day. So it says, why does it say Hashishi? All the other days it says day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. This one it says day the sixth. Why the sixth? So it says because it depends on this sixth day of Sivan, when the Torah was given. The whole world depends on the Torah being given. If the Torah, I'm trying to put a new angle on this thing. I don't think it's really working, to tell you the truth. But okay, we'll try it anyway. This is the sixth day of creation. When God created the world, that's when He finished creating the world. So He was hinting at the big number 6, the sixth. What's the sixth? What could be more important than finishing the world? The day that the Torah was given. The Torah was given on also the sixth day of the month of Sivan. Sixth day. So that's the giving of the Torah. What happened when God gave the Torah? That's what we're going to explain a little bit over here. But there's no other religion or race or a nation or philosophy or science fiction book or anything that even makes a claim like this. And we claim that it actually happened. It really actually happened. All the other religions, maybe it happened. It didn't happen. It could be. Right? The guy got the 2 tablets from heaven somewhere. Who knows where they came from? Here, 3 million people, 600,000 men from the age of 20 up. Some say just from the age of 20 to 60. They heard God. They saw God face to face. Says punning lapunning. And they heard God speak. And this same God took them out of Egypt. And this is the same God that created the world in 6 days. That's what it says in the 4th commandment of the 10 commandments. 6 days God created them. So God's creating the world, and He's taking the Jews out of Egypt. He did all these miracles, and He's feeding them bread from heaven. And all that's nothing compared to this big day when God gives the Torah to the Jewish people. What is the Torah and the Jewish people? It's the Creator's instruction manual for the world. Instruction manual for the world. The whole world. Imagine receiving a computer and never hearing you don't know what a computer is. You never heard anything about it, with no instructions whatsoever. Right? You're just given it. So what are you supposed to do with it? What are you supposed to do? So maybe some people can guess what's going on here. But a computer is something that's outside of yourself. Here, it's talking about what to do with yourself. You're part of the creation. You're part of the creation. But most amazingly, the whole idea is that you, me, everyone, everything, all the stars, all the angels are being created by God. So God is not a thing. He's not a creation. God is beginning this whole entire business, and He's keeping it going all the time, creating every little detail, every molecule, every quark, every bug, every planet, every star, every spirit. God is actually creating everything. So God is not a person. He's not a limited thing. On the other hand, God does act like a person, reacts to what we do. He's creating the world for a purpose. That's the whole thing. God is creating the world for a purpose. I think that everyone in the world feels this, that there's a purpose to life. I think that everyone feels that there is a purpose to life. I was just thinking about this today. I'm a very big fan of Professor Viktor Frankl. The Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, also very much recommended his world. He was a big professor, and he was also a brain surgeon, and he also was a professor in philosophy. He didn't like to say that, but he was. And he was also a professor in psychology, psychiatry. So he developed a whole new outlook of man, that man wants meaning in life. And everyone feels in life a certain responsibility to do something, to be a good person, to have a family, to do something positive, to appreciate the world, to take a positive attitude when it's impossible to appreciate or to do positive things. And he said that one of the essences of man, one of the, because of the tragic triad, one of the things of the tragic of people that people have to deal with in life is death and suffering and guilt. And guilt. Death, everybody knows there's death, everybody knows there's suffering. What's guilt? Because everyone feels that there's a reason why they're here. and everyone feels, and guilt is the sense that maybe I'm not doing it. Maybe I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. Maybe I should do more. Maybe I should do more. Of course, this can be twisted around like everything else. That's what Christianity basically did. Took the feeling of guilt and twisted it around that everybody's automatically guilty and you have the first sin and other things. Okay. Okay, that's a misuse of it. But the fact of the matter is that guilt can be a very positive thing. It can be it can be a crippling thing also, but it can be a very positive thing. What positive? That it pushes you to do more. We're not talking about a debilitating guilt. We're talking about a person feels he has to do more. Okay, so you have to do more, but what? What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Everyone feels they're here for a purpose. What to do? So stands up the Nazis, they tell you this. And then there stands up the communists, they tell you this. And then stands up this religion and that religion. And that. But here we have the Creator himself telling everyone what is their responsibility to do in the world. And if you don't do it, that you should feel guilty for a second, 2 seconds. And then you should say, well, maybe I'm on the wrong track. I should do something positive. If you feel guilty all the time, that should really make you feel guilty because then you're really missing the point. A person's supposed to be happy, happy to know that God cares about them. But that's why God chose the Jewish people. He chose the Jewish people to tell the whole world how much he believes in them, every human being. And every human being is empowered. So that's the idea of the receiving of the Torah. Undoubtedly, the most important event that ever occurred in the whole world. And it's also, this idea of responsibility is also very difficult. And it's very, very difficult to do because it's talking about using your whole being to serve the Creator who is invisible, and your being is not invisible. Your being is very present and pressing and demanding. And God is also demanding, but you don't feel it. So that's the whole idea of giving of the Torah. The giving of the Torah is why God created the world in such a way that we have difficulties and we have challenges in life and we have desires and lusts and frustrations and anger and the depression and aggression. All these things are natural human traits, and that God gave us the Torah to and also empowered us when he gave us the Torah to overcome these things. And that makes a whole different type of a person. I just visited last night a person that was a criminal. He sat in prison a long time. Somebody I know, not important. But anyways, he sat in prison. He was violent. He was a violent person, and he did things through violence and everything. Anyway, so he sat in prison a while, and I visited him yesterday. He got out. He served his time. He's a little older person now, and I talked to him. It was one of the most, pleasant conversations that I ever had. He just came to certain understandings in life, and about how you have to do good to people and have to accept things, and that anger is not it's counterproductive, and that it's foolish, and he did it because he was young. But it just, you see how the person matured because he overcame these difficulties. Sometimes you can say something, but then on the other hand, you can say it without meaning it, and you can see that he meant all the good things that he said. So therefore, when we overcome obstacles, it's a good thing. The problem is what is an obstacle, right? Who's an obstacle? If you lived in Nazi Germany and you didn't want to kill people, right? You didn't want to kill people, then you have to overcome that obstacle, right? You have to. If you live in communist Russia and you didn't want to, steal money from the rich, then that's a bad thing. What are you, a coward? You have to steal money from the rich. You have to kill people. And so, like I said, this feeling of guilt, and this can be hijacked. That's why we have the Torah. The Torah here is to tell us why God created man and why God is creating me and you. Here we go. Ready? The call here was a sentence right before the Torah was given. The call roim et kolot. All of the people, they all saw. Let me see. They've got the pointer over here. They all saw at the kolot. They all saw the thunder, the voice. How do you say the thunders? They saw the thunders, veta lapidim, and the torches, the fire that call a shofar, and the sound of the shofar sounding in Mount Sinai. God's about to give his law. He's about to tell the whole world what's the purpose of the world. And it was thunder, and there was lightning, lapidim was fire, and there was a shofar, born a sound, a shofar. The question is, what do you have to have a shofar there for? What's the shofar? Well, Lama, the Havian, to understand, Lama, you call shofar, but why was there a sound of a shofar in Mount Torah, in the giving of the Torah? What do you had to have a band over there? What was going on? They had to have and if you did have to have a band, that's the best. I mean, this is God here. God, he's giving the shofar. Give the shofar with a violin, a piano, or a beautiful instrument. A shofar is a terrible instrument, right? Terrible instrument. You can't. It sounds a couple of. You can play tunes on a shofar, but it sounds terrible. There's no quality to it. Why in the world would you want to have a shofar over there? What's the idea of a shofar? Now, maybe some people don't know what a shofar is. A shofar it's a ram's horn, right? The Jews sounded on Rosh Hashanah, right? It's wide on one end, like a horn. Dude. What's the answer? Hine, behold, call a shofar. The shofar is called pashut. It's a straight blast. Dude. Umatil ema, and it causes awe, fear. One second, let me make this a little bit bigger over here. Make it user-friendly for me. There we go. One minute. Oh, here we go. All right, let's see what's going on over here. Here we go. I wanted to make it big. 1 second. I'm trying to change this around but it's not really working for me. Okay, here we go. Okay. What happened? Oh. Yeah, so I'm going back to where I was before. Okay, so why did it have to be a sound of a shofar over there? So it says a shofar is a straight blast, and it causes awe. It can it be that if you sound the shofar, one of the prophets, you sound the shofar in a city and people won't be afraid? But I think I told you about this once. I remember we were in a university and we wanted to put tefillin on people, whatever it was, and nobody paid attention. So there was this sort of little hill, and it was in Elul, the month of Elul, you sound the shofar. So I sound the shofar, everybody stopped. I was really amazed. Everybody stopped. Everyone stopped. Shofar, for some reason, catches everybody's attention more than any other musical instrument. It's quite amazing. The Cain also of Matan Torah, Kasiv, it says, Vayehi kolos v'brakim. It says that there were sounds, there were thunders and brakim, lightning. The kol shofar, and the sound of the shofar, chazak meod, it was very, very strong. The yecharad, and the people were afraid. The shofar made everybody afraid. Okay, so that's why God had the shofar there, that everyone should be afraid. That makes sense. The whole mountain was shaking. There was lightning and thunder. Everybody's souls was jumping out of their body. He had to have a shofar. We'll see. I'll call the after all, this nikra shofar, it's called a shofar. Why shofar? Because the word shofar means to improve. Shaper. Shapru masecher. Improve your deeds. Shehu mamshich. This draws down tainug. This draws down pleasure. What's pleasure? Pleasure means it touches your soul. Tainug shabu. Al yadon, by means of the shofar, nimshach lamat is drawn down below. Liot hithavu the tainug, to be pleasure. Shofar means to improve. Why would you want to improve? Generally speaking, why does a person want to improve himself? Usually a person wants to improve himself because he wants something better. He wants something better. He wants something that's more himself, right? A sports person improves himself because he wants to win. A musician improves himself because he loves music. The scientist, mathematician, he improves himself because he wants to get solutions. They're striving for something that gives them pleasure. That's what's called a shofar. A shofar gives you the feeling that there's something worthwhile that's bigger than you, that's waiting for you. That's the real you. And you want to improve yourself. Shapru masechem, improve yourself. And it gives a pleasure. Because it comes from the source of pleasure. Okay, now what is pleasure? Pleasure is generally speaking, it's a feeling of life. You feel alive. Like I said before, everyone feels they have a responsibility in the world. When a person feels pleasure, so he feels, oh, this is my responsibility. I got something. Of course, it's understood there's pleasure to the bad side. There's people get addicted to all sorts of crazy pleasures. But nevertheless, good things are also pleasurable. There's a different type of a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be honest. It draws people to honesty. There's a pleasure for a person to be attached to something bigger than himself. That's where the what is it? Belief in these different religions or loyalty to your country, patriotism, and these things. You feel you're something. It gives you a pleasure. You're part of something bigger. But especially if that bigger thing is drawing you, it has a promise of something that's true. So, I mean, of course, there's a whole gamut, a whole world of bad things that give you pleasure, but that doesn't mean that pleasure is bad. The idea of pleasure, it does touch on the essence of your soul. Your essence of your soul can be hijacked, right? It can be hijacked to wrong, but the fact is there is the essence of the soul, and the feeling the essence of the soul is a pleasurable feeling. That's why it says souls go up to heaven, they get pleasure up in heaven. Well, there's a greater pleasure to be achieved here in this physical world. It's not a personal pleasure. It's a pleasure which comes by means of giving up your selfishness. Selfishness. Like music and things like that give a person pleasure because he doesn't feel himself so much. Okay, so this type of pleasure, this tzorech lios b'matan Torah, it had to be in the giving of the Torah. Why? Because with you, God is the source of life. God, you are the source of pleasure and the source of life and the source of pleasure, the source of reality. That's what was revealed at Mount Sinai. And like I say, it was revealed in front of 3 million people. They all saw it. They were all there. They all felt it. And this has been passed down for the last 3,300 whatever years, the Jewish people, that there was such a thing. Right? My father told me, my grandfather told me, my next door neighbor's grandfather told me, but still, the story has been passed down by rabbis, by people. And of course, there's always, perhaps even the majority of Jews that have rejected this idea, but because it's very demanding that the Torah was given, and then that's the source of life is to keep Shabbat, and that you shouldn't light a match on Shabbat. That's the source of life. What's the connection one to the other? We'll talk about that, but just as life has the human body has a lot of details to it, and if one little corpuscle or something like that doesn't work, then the whole body can be shot. Right? The whole body doesn't work. You have a pain in your little toe or something like that. You can't go to work. You can't do anything. You got to get it fixed up. The same thing with every little detail of the creation is important, and that's why there's so many details in the Torah, because it corresponds. The Torah is the source of creation. But the fact is, it connects to life. That's the point. Well, let's explain this. Now, our big question is shofar. Why there has to be a shofar? Let's explain this. We have to understand, first of all, what was Matan Torah? What was the giving of the Torah? Even before Torah, the Torah came to tell mankind what is right. There were people that knew what was right beforehand. People didn't know what was right until the Torah was given. There were great individuals that knew what was right. And for instance, Adam Arishon, the first man, he certainly knew what was right. Yeah, he certainly knew what was right. It doesn't work over here. All right, I'm trying to see. They used to, oh, here we go, here we go, here we go. Oh, good, here we go. Good. He knew what was right. Chanoch, Metushalach, says they were there before the flood even. They knew what was right. Abraham, he was after the flood. But it says Abraham did the whole Torah before it was given. Like it says, Vayishmar Mishmarti, that Abraham knew, listen, that the Torah is the blueprint of creation. So the Torah is something that's there. It's the blueprint of creation. There were some people that became aware of what this blueprint is, what's good and what's bad. Other people might have been aware, but they couldn't hold themselves back. We had Cain killed Hevel just a couple, who knows, an hour, whatever, after the world was created. A couple of hours, a couple of days, whenever the world was created. So it was very shortly afterwards that Cain killed. Who says murder is bad? They knew it says that Adam was given 7 of commandments, 6 of the 7 Noahide commandments. Adam was given, so he knew it was bad. There was bad and there was good. God told him, "Don't eat from this tree. Don't do this. Don't." So it says that the Torah was really there. Yes, it was there. The Torah is eternal. The Torah is before the world. It's accessible to man. The problem is you have to be spiritual in order to get it, because the Torah was spiritual. What was the big change when the Torah was given? It was given physically into the physical world. So that's such a big deal. I mean, Abraham knew it. It was there. He had to take all the Jews out of Egypt, and so they had to suffer for 210 years in exile and big lightning and thunder and shofars and everything in order to tell people just what already was there. Abraham, Isaac, they knew it already. That's the whole big thing about giving the Torah. You just took what was spiritual and made it physical. It's not a new thing, if so. But Milat Avram, Abraham, true. Abraham knew what the Torah was. But the thing of Abraham was, says that Abraham traveled southward. What does it mean? That he became a vehicle to reveal in the world Negba. What's Negba? We'll see. It means love. This level of the south. Until Shanasa Merkava, and beforehand, and before Abraham became just a vehicle for God's love in the world, as he was traveling. What does it mean traveling? He was going and coming back. He was working and trying to come close to God constantly. He sensed that there was such a thing as God. He sensed that there was such a thing as God's will in the world. He created the world for a reason. He created me for a reason. Abraham sensed this, and he was trying constantly to do both, come close to God and to bring this feeling of godliness into the world. That's called running and coming back. It says by the chariot that Ezekiel saw. It says that the angels, the chayas rotzav v'shov, it says that the angels are also going up and coming back. And Abraham, he was higher. He was called holech v'nesoah. Abraham was even higher than the angels, because the angels, they have no real free will. They go closer to God because God is like their food. God is the source of their life. And then when they've gotten too much, they feel they're too close to God, then they come back. Because that's their nature. But Abraham wasn't his nature to come close to God. He was a human being like everybody else. People don't feel God. But Abraham did have this inkling that was God, so he had to break his nature, and to do that took a higher power to go up. So Abraham, by putting the desire that the angels have, by manifesting it into the world, he was bringing spirituality into the world. Okay, so that was he did what the angels did, going and coming, going close to God and coming back, going close to God and coming back, leaving yourself, so to speak, your selfishness, and then coming closer to the Creator, and then realizing that, one second, God is creating me not to leave myself. There's a purpose to myself, coming back. So let's understand this. What is this idea of coming close to God is only by running and coming back. Rotzev v'shov. You can see that it's written. And also, if the only way to come close to God is by going up and coming down, and then coming up and coming down, in other words, constantly approaching God and realizing you have to go out of yourself and realize a higher reality. And then when you realize this feeling, this higher reality that I'm just being created, then you think, but one second, I want to remain a creation in the world. That's called coming back. And then you want to come closer to God. That's called going to. So if that's the only way to come close to God, then in Mount Sinai, it was the opposite. God just came down and just gave the Torah. The Jews didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to run it. They didn't have to come back. Right? I mean, they didn't have to do any work at all. They just stood there under the mountain and God talked to them. So that seems to be the opposite of Abraham. Let's explain this. What is this thing of going and coming back? You need to see, because it is written, that God makes peace in the upper worlds. The source of fire in this world is a spiritual fire. The source of water in this world is a spiritual water. Now, fire in general, it's called one of the four elements. It's really one of the four, if you say nature's, nature is to go up, to be warm, to go up, to burn. That's called, in Hebrew, it's called gevura, power. And Mayim's nature is to come down, to flow, like pleasure. That's called, in Hebrew, that corresponds to chesed, kindness, coming down. In a Mayim, water puts out fire. L'chiora, it's not understood. How can we say that up in the heavens there is fire and water? What does it mean that usually in this world water puts out the fire? Until that God has to make a miracle that there's shalom, that there's water and fire in the upper worlds, and they exist together. And that's a big miracle. What does it mean in the upper worlds? Where's the fire? And water could put out the fire in the upper worlds. In this world, understand, fire is a physical thing. It needs something to burn, right? It needs wood or something flammable, combustible to grab onto. And if you put water on it, so that cools it off and makes the thing not combustible anymore. But it doesn't light, right? You're interrupting the fire from burning the thing, or you're making the thing so wet that it doesn't burn. But what is that in the upper worlds? What does it mean in the upper worlds? That it's a fire, and you might think that fire could be put out by water, or maybe the water would be evaporated by the fire. In any case, God has to make peace between them in the upper worlds. What does it mean? What does it mean? Is the fire and water there, what's called Ratzav Shov. That's what we're just talking about, going up and coming back. Fire goes up, water comes down. Know that the foundation of a fire is in the heart. Shesham, that there is the tzimon, there is the thirst, heat. Bechinas ratzoi, right? The heat is as blood, it's hot. Ukamaimer, like the saying, im ratz libcha, if your heart runs, daika, your heart runs. The heart is the running, the heart wants to go close to God. I know, they be in a liba, by means of the understanding of the heart, the desire of the heart, the awareness of the heart, that a person takes to his heart, and he contemplates the greatness of God. That's the thing of the heart. There's things that can be understood in the mind, and there's things that can be understood by the heart. Right? If you tell somebody, explain to somebody, you explain to somebody that this is a good check, and I said you can fool him, right? And you can keep fooling him until his heart really starts to believe it. As soon as he realizes it's not true, then his heart, there's no feeling anymore. Doesn't feel anything. And the same thing is with everything. They give a person a diamond, he's excited. As soon as he realizes in his mind that it's not, so he's not excited anymore. And the excitement did not come from his mind. The excitement came from his heart. It's the same stone, there it is, right? But just he understood that lit something up in his heart. If that stone belongs to somebody else, you don't get excited about it. But you understand the whole thing. But the fact that it's mine, somehow that lights up my heart. I get all excited about it. The same thing, when you think about the greatness of God and how God is creating us and is creating me, and you think about this, is that possible God is creating me? What does that mean? I thought that I'm the ultimate reality. You start thinking about that, that God is Ein Sof, He's infinite. Like God's name, so He is. Ein Lo Sof, He's got no end, and there's no limit. Rak Hodu al Shemayim, that all we can comprehend of God is a little bit of a ray of godliness. And Malchutcha, God's what's called His power of kingship, the lowest of God's 10 sfirot, that's the king of all the worlds. That's what we think is the highest. Shekola Olamos, that all of the worlds, Chayutam Akayamum, their life and their existence and their very being, Me'ain Liyesh, from nothing to something, it comes from God's kingship. So God is creating us. We're talking about the heart now. We're talking about Ratzah, going up. When a person starts thinking, the Rebbe is telling us practical advice, what to do. When you start to think that you're being created, that I am created now, a person thinks to himself, I'm being created. I'm being created by the lowest aspect of God that there is, lowest aspect of it. When I think about that, then I start to realize that all of the worlds, all of their life just comes from God's lowest aspect. In the Bible, it's called God's mouth. Shehu b'chinas ha'ora ba'alma is just like a little ray of godliness. He's pashtus l'zulaso, that God, so to speak, spreads out His creative power to others. She'enu nogei al atzmuto, that this, so to speak, does not relate to God's essence, umhuso. Right? You look at the whole world, you can never in any way extrapolate from what the world is what God is. It's like hearing one little letter, right, that a person speaks, give a little, right, a hint. Here, I'm going to give you a hint. Ready? Listen. You play a recording. Here, ready? Listen. That's the hint. I want you to tell me how old the person was that spoke, what country he's from, how many children he's got, what's his IQ, what's his DNA, you don't know anything. This world is a little from God. It's much less than that. How can you tell what God is from that? Nevertheless, that's creating me. The whole world is being created. The whole world is amazing. It says, if the world is amazing, then the creator of the world is even more amazing. And not only that, you start to realize that not only is the creator of the world amazing, but the world itself is more amazing than you think. The creator himself, that doesn't have to do anything, he's creating you all the time. When you start to think about that, the Hu Kodesh, that God himself is Kodesh Umuvdal, he's holy and removed, Migeder Olmin, from the worlds. Lo b'bechinas, he doesn't, not that he fills the worlds or he surrounds the worlds. These are just aspects of God. Therefore, tichla v'tichsof nafsho. As soon as you realize that this is true, it's like the diamond belongs to me, that God is really creating me, you really feel it, and not just something that's written in the book or that the Rebbe feels it. Then all of a sudden your soul gets excited. And you want to likalel, to be included, with a batal, and to be surrendered into Ein Sof Baruch Hu Mamash, the Davka Bo Mamash. So this is the thing you can try at home. Do it yourself. Arousing your heart to the Creator. If you feel that you're just alone and that you're just here and that you were born, whatever it is, 20, 50, 100 years ago, and that's it, it's not so. You're being created every single instant, brand new, totally, 100%. And just like you feel that you yourself exist, right? I feel I exist, the most obvious feeling in the world. It says if you really think about it, you can start to feel that you're being created and you can feel your creator. You can feel your creator. And it says, therefore, that's called running. That's called you desire. Suddenly you realize how good God is. Then chayos ratzav v'shov. That's what's called that the chayos. This theory is talking about the angels. They go up and they come back. Because when these angels, they understand that their life, which is drawn to them from the holiness of God, she'ein lo sof, and that the God that is who's more real than they are, and is creating them, and God has no end. Harihem borim this, so they burn up, kamaria lapidim, like the flames of fire. The bechinas ratzeh going up. Gehi mithalechet bein achayot, because it says that it goes among this life force between the angels, shahachayot and nimshach lehem, that the life force which is drawn to them, he mitalechet tamid. This is what goes constantly. Ratzeh v'shov, they feel their life. For life is also consciousness. How do you say comprehension, intellect? They're aware of things. The angels are aware, just like in this world, you're aware you have a diamond that's worth $20 million, you get excited. The angels, they don't care about diamonds. What do they care about diamonds? The angels, they care about the source of the diamond. They care about the source of life, the source of their being, and they feel it. That's how they're created, not like us. So the angels automatically, when they feel this, on one hand, they're created beings, so they have their own identity. On the other hand, they feel God, that they're being created, so they lose their identity. That's called going away, ratzah. That's what's called ratzah, running. Liot alishech teshukotech. Like it says, to your wife will be your desire. To your husband, it says to your husband, I'm sorry. Elishech, the El, ishtachat shukotech. Anyway, it means to your wife. The pasuk is Elishech. I have to look the sentence up. Anyway, it says to your husband will be your desire. The world is like the feminine, it receives from God. And when a person realizes that he's receiving everything from God, so he has a desire, the person has a desire for this, for a husband, so to speak, to the source. To be negated in Or Ein Sof, really, like a flame that goes up on its own. And sometimes you see this a little bit, you see this sometimes, they have these big rock and roll stars, right? And the people in the crowd go berserko. They just wanted to, they can just, if I can just get a little piece of his garment or his shoelace or, his guitar pick or something like that, because when they play music, so people enjoy it, they like it, and they surrender themselves to it. And this person, he is the source of the music, right? This is Paganini, whatever, he's the source of this violin music. Oh, just to be close to him. Because a person gives them pleasure, so people are in awe of this person and they want to be close to him. We see it in politics also, leaders and things. Because the people feel that this is the source of this is the reason I'm here. This is the reason that I'm created. You feel life, your source of source of life. That's called ratzin. But it says afterwards you come back. What does it mean come back? Kamaimer, like it says, it's in the book called Sefer Yetzirah, a Kabbalah book. It says if your heart runs, like we said, burns up to God, shuv le'echad, come back to one. Come back to one. What are we talking about here? I mean, it's true, God is creating us and everything, and God is very inspiring, God is very exciting. You feel the essence of your life, you feel a tremendous love for God, but on the other hand, God is creating the world. Judaism points out that this world is infinitely more valuable, important, real than the heavens. Like that's one of the big mistakes, if you want to call it, or of all the other religions in the world, that they say that heaven is the place. That's the goal. You're going to die. You're going to go to heaven. Heaven is the goal. That's the place where you're supposed to be, is in heaven. This world is a big fake out. Don't pay any attention to this world. Only insofar as it gets you into heaven. Judaism says that's true, 100% it's true, the pleasures of heaven, and you're certainly in this world in order to do good, but that's absolutely nothing compared to this world. That's not the reason you're created. The reason you're created is not to receive spiritual pleasure. That's not why you're here. The reason that you're here is so that the world itself should be perfect. And that, of course, how do you say, from that will ensue pleasure. It'll be a side product of this, but that's not the reason you're doing it. The reason you're in this world is because to realize how tremendously valuable and important and precious this world is to God. That's why he's creating it. Every detail of it. So, Rotzoi, this thing of running, that's to realize how great God is and how amazing God is and how fantastic God is and how the spiritual levels are just higher aspects of God than we are. God, but that's nothing. All these spiritual aspects, that's called the ladder of Jacob. These spiritual worlds are just like a ladder to make us realize what the Creator, amazing the Creator really is. One moment. One moment. One moment. One moment. כן. תודה. שלום, תודה. יפה, נסיעה טובה. איך אתה מגיע? hold רגע. שלום. אתם יודעות איך ללכת? הם הולכים לבית כנסת, גם מהבית כנסת הולכים כזה, ישר. שלום, תודה שבאתם. תבואי עוד. שלום. Shabbos justice. I pressed the pause button, but the button doesn't pause. What can you do? It doesn't pause. Okay, here we go. Let's go. So therefore, there's Shabbos just going home. Okay, now Shuv, coming back. Coming back is because this, in fact, as confusing and as misleading and frustrating as this world is, and as good and as beautiful and holy and true are the upper worlds, but the fact is God wants this physical world to be here, and he wants us to perfect this physical world. And here's going to be what we call the raising of the dead. All of the dead people are going to leave the heavens and they're going to come down here. This physical world is great. We don't see this now, but if a person starts to think about it, he gets closer and closer to the Creator, suddenly he realizes that maybe that's not my job, is to leave this world. Maybe religion is a good thing only insofar as it improves this world. That's the idea of Shuv, coming back to the world, coming back to reality. Hazeh, this world, Shuv, Ubechinas Shuv hazeh, this, Ubechinas Yesod Hamayim. This is like water. Shebamoach, that's not in the heart, that's more in the brain. Bechinas Chachma, that's what we call Chachma, Koach Ma. Ma Pishpashta, Ma Yadata. This is, Ma means what? In other words, it's incomprehensible. The holiness of this physical world is an incomprehensible thing. The spiritual is great, that you can understand a little bit, right? Spiritual is good. Spiritual is godly, closer to life, closer to truth. This world is just all full of terrible things, this world. I mean, we know how terrible it is and how easy it is to make mistakes in this world. But down deep, and people come to the false conclusion that this world is a bad place and you got to get out of here, and that people are bad, and that you have to get out of your personality, you have to leave, but it's not so. The fact of the matter is deep down, the essence of creation, the world is good. We just have to realize it, reveal it. And every human being in his essence is good. We just have to reveal it. That's the idea of trying to reveal the good in this world. That's Shuv. That's what it means, come back to the true oneness. Shashuv comes back to one. If you want to be spiritual, so it means you're leaving the world behind. It means that you're not unifying God. You're saying God is only in the upper worlds. He's not down here. This is not so. It's a big mistake. And the Judaism comes to correct this mistake, to show how holy the physical world is. This level of Shuv, a Madriga, Zu, Ein Hamayim, Shebamoach, Marvim et Tzimon. When you come back to this physical world and you want to do commandments and things, nevertheless, it's no real competition for the spiritual worlds. Shebalev, Liot Mechabim Eish, it doesn't put out this fire. Liot Nofel al Yedezem and Madrigas et Simon, Pachuka Shebalev. What's going on? Let's say we think about God and you get excited about God and you start to realize how wonderful God is, and you sing to God and you're rejoicing in God, and God is creating me, and he's my creator. Let's not call him God. Let's call God, sort of gives this religious connotation. The creator, the almighty creator is creating me. How wonderful it is. I can come close to the creator. The creator is so good. The creator is so wonderful. The creator is forgiving. The creator is everything. But what about the creation? What about the creation? You're supposed to be here. You have to have a family. You have to deal with day-to-day things. So yes, a person says, you're right, 100%. God wants me to live in creation. But nevertheless, your excitement about serving God in this creation is always marred by the creation itself. There's all sorts of frustrations and difficulties and it is a disappointment, terrible disappointments in this world, right? That you're thinking about, serving God, and all of a sudden you stub your toe, or you have a flat tire, or your next door neighbor, that drives over your lawn on purpose or something like that. So what are you supposed to do? So even if, let's say, you control yourself and etc., but still you're not loving God. You're not. That's why in the synagogue you go to shul to pray, to daven. There's not supposed to be any distractions whatsoever. That's what it's supposed to be. That's why you don't bring your women, your wife with you to the synagogue, because it's a distraction. It's a distraction. Not there's anything bad. It's just the distractions are bad. But being in a synagogue is not it's a false environment. It's like being in an incubator. You have to be protected from the outside world so that you can think a little bit about about God. But the purpose is to leave the synagogue and to be in the world. Thinking about God, that's like fire. Going back into the world, that's like water. But that water that you're in the world, coming into the world, it doesn't put out your fire. You still want to connect yourself to God. It says, so therefore, this thirst that you have for God will never be put out. Like it's written in Sefer Yetzirah, that's the book I just quoted. Eish mimayim. It says fire comes out from water. Kamamina eish. There's all sorts of different types of fire. Eish ochla eish. It says there's one type of fire that can devour another type of eish. The eish shota. There's another type of eish that puts out another type of it. A fire. This is the thing of Abraham. Abraham, first, you just take a simple example. A person loves money. You love money. Then people love their lives. Usually you love your money more than you love your life. Usually, there was this comedian in America that he did a thing that a thief would come up to him on the stage. He would stand up on the stage. Someone with a mask over his face will come over. They used to be masks. They used to be a sign of a criminal before they invented this Corona stuff. Come out with this: is your money or your life? And he would just stand there. Says, your money or your life? He says, give me time, I'm thinking. It was a joke. Usually people they love money, but people love their life more. Some people love their children more than they love their own self. They're willing to give their own life. There's many different levels of love. And then there's loving God. People are willing to give their life for God. Right here we have the story of Hannah and her 7 sons. Give her 7. There was Abraham, alav shalom, halach v'nasoah. That was Abraham. He was constantly increasing this level of love of God, constantly increasing this level of God, and constantly coming back to the world. Rotzev v'shov, eshu mayim, fire and water. Fire going up, which is higher than water, and water, a type of water which is higher than fire. Water that pushes him back down into the world, to be in the world. Ad Roma Milas, to the highest levels, Ad Shanasim recover, until Abraham became a simple chariot for God. A chariot for God is going back and forth. Life pulsates, right? Your heart pulsates, your lungs pulsate. The weather, day, night, winter, summer, there's a pulsation. That's a natural thing of life, right? But to serve God is not natural. It's not automatic. You have to do it yourself. Abraham got to the level where he was so devoted to God that it became natural. This rotzev v'shuv, this pulsation of going closer to God and then coming back to the world, was natural to Abraham, but it's not natural to us. Therefore, God had to give the Torah, but we're talking about this, God willing, tomorrow. See, this thing doesn't stop the recording. Okay, you have to go over here and stop the recording.